Welcome, and thank you so much for joining this virtual open house. My name is John Irvine. I graduated from St. Peter's. My son came to St. Peter's. I coached soccer and taught English here for many years, and I'm now in my 18th year as Director of Admissions. I think you get the idea. Prep has been and continues to be an important part of my life. I like to tell parents that I will read your son's application, greet him on his first day at prep, and shake his hand the night he gets his diploma. One of my favorite things about the open house has always been having so many families from so many different towns and schools come to prep on a Sunday afternoon. The pandemic may have prevented us from having 1,200 guests on campus, but this virtual event will sort of allow us to be together. We know that many of the sons and parents are in front of a screen a good part of the week, so we are very grateful to you for sharing part of your day with us. As much as our admissions team and directors from other schools have been challenged by COVID-19, it does not compare to the challenge you face as you try to narrow your list of schools down to the one that will hopefully change your life in the best possible ways. As I wrote in my message on our website, remember, you are not the only student in this situation. All of your classmates, and in fact, every eighth grader in America is going through the same situation. You are pioneers, and your experience will not only be unique, it will be one that you'll look back on someday proudly, knowing that you overcame this challenge. We've been looking at the questions you've submitted when registering for this event, and so I think a quick overview of the admissions process will address many of your inquiries. First, please know that everything for us is done online. You're going to go to our website, create an account, and that's going to give you access to the application. That's the best place to start. Submitting the application will give you access to your own personal admissions checklist. Then we're going to need an entrance exam. If you live in New York, you may be taking the TAKS. If you're applying to an independent school, you may be taking the ISEE or the SSAT, both of which are acceptable, as is the TAKS. We will host the HSPT here in person on November the 7th, and again on November the 14th, and online November the 21st. You can register and pay the $35 fee for that test, the HSPT, from your admissions checklist once you've submitted the application. The teacher recommendation, your essay, and the grades will be due in early December. At that time, we'll have your test scores and we'll begin reviewing applications. Our decisions will be mailed on January the 14th. We'll have about 800 applicants, admit about 450, aiming for a class of 230 to 250. If a boy scores in the top 10% on the entrance test and has good grades, solid recommendation, and has done a good essay, he's going to be offered an Ignatian academic scholarship, ranging from $7,000 a year to $12,000 a year. From that pool, we'll invite the top 40 Ignatian Scholar recipients into interview for a Sheehan Scholarship. That's a full tuition scholarship sponsored and paid for by Mr. Jerry Sheehan, prep class of 1948. 25 Sheehan Scholarships will be awarded. At this time, I would like to explain the format for today's event. You will hear from our principal, a prep parent, the president of our student council, and the president of our school. Dr. Gomez, our prep president, his message is pre-recorded, and depending on your device, may lag a bit through Zoom, so please bear with us. The speeches will be followed by 4 presentations that would have been part of your day if we were here in person. I'll return to introduce the presentations following Dr. Gomez's video. Now I would like to introduce our principal, Mr. James DeAngelo, also a prep graduate. Mr. DeAngelo taught German here for many years and is currently in his 13th year as our principal. Mr. DeAngelo.
Thank you, Mr. Irvine, and hello to everyone here. I'm standing in the lobby of Mulry Hall, in many ways, the crossroads of the west side of Prep's campus. I'm standing next to a banner that displays information about the global reach of a Jesuit education. You see, when you come to St. Peter's Prep, you're not just a member of this school community, but also a part of the community of Jesuit schools throughout the world. Very specifically, we have a number of student and teacher exchanges with schools in Peru and Brazil and South America, as well as France, Germany, Italy, and Spain in Europe. That may seem a little odd these days, given the context in which we find ourselves, a global pandemic, but our relationships this year continue in the virtual realm. Prep reopened this fall in a hybrid model of learning, with 50% of our students coming to campus on Monday and Tuesday, and the other half connecting through Zoom. On Thursday and Friday, the groups flip. Wednesdays, we're using for all types of virtual assemblies that have featured things like author talks, seminars on voting in the elections, and in the days ahead, a presentation on coping with feelings of isolation in these times, and an interfaith prayer service for Thanksgiving, to name just a few. In the time since we returned, I can tell you that it is different here at Grandin Warren. Like other schools, we all wear masks and need to maintain social distance from one another. But still, the spirit of St. Ignatius, the founder of the Jesuits, is still very much alive here, and his desire to see God in all things inspires us every day. Our school mission statement speaks about being a community of learners, and certainly we have learned a lot in the past few months about how teaching and learning can continue in this hybrid environment. I've started dropping in on classes through Zooms this past week. It's a new experience for me as well, but what's not different is the spirit and the creativity and engagement of our students and our teachers, even in the challenges of this hybrid model. Our mission statement also speaks about the diverse community that St. Peter's Prep is. We celebrate and value the diversity in all forms, and all are welcome here. But just like our nation and our world, the resurgent discussions in recent months around the sin of racism in the world has also called us to reflect on the blessings and challenges our own diversity here bring us. As you move through this experience today, I hope that you will carefully consider whether prep is the right fit for your high school education, as it is for our 900 plus current students, and as it was for the thousands of loyal prep alumni, myself included, who continue to support and champion our school in so many ways. Please take advantage of the opportunity to ask questions and to learn more about prep. I wish you all God's blessings as you consider this next important step in your journey. Thank you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Ms. Maureen Doherty. From Fanwood, New Jersey, she is the parent of 3 prep men: Liam, the class of 2019, Aiden from the class of 2020, and Brian, a current sophomore, class of 24. Her husband, also Brian, is an alumnus from the class of 1990. Ms. Doherty is a graduate of Bishop R. High School herself, Rosemont College, and New York Law School, and currently is the Director of Marketing and Alumni Relations at St. Bartholomew Academy in Scotch Plains. I'm very grateful to her and her willingness to be here and share her experiences as a prep parent. And now I'd like to pass this on to Ms. Maureen Doherty.
Thank you, Mr. DeAngelo. Hello, everyone, and welcome to St. Peter's. As Mr. DeAngelo mentioned, my name is Maureen Doherty. I'm so happy to be with you today to share with you a little bit about my family's experience at St. Peter's. As Mr. DeAngelo mentioned, we've had 3 boys attend prep. 2 have graduated and one's a sophomore, and my husband and my brother-in-law are also alumni. I think the best way to explain this school, what hit home for us and what demonstrates what prep is about, is to tell you how the school handled graduation this past spring. I think one of the best ways to gauge an institution is how it handles a crisis, and graduating during COVID was a crisis like no other. So 3 things happened. First, each boy had their diploma dropped off at their house by a faculty member, but not just any faculty member. The faculty and staff picked the students they knew well. My son Aiden had a teacher he got close to through campus ministry and his Kairos retreat deliver his. And that was meaningful to Aiden, but it touched this mom's heart just to know that the staff took the time to drive all around Central and North Jersey just to congratulate the boys. The second thing that happened was prep offered a virtual prayer service when we couldn't gather for the baccalaureate mass. We gathered socially distant in a friend's backyard with about 7 other families. And there were kids there that I had not really met before because they were friends Aiden had that he only got to really see in school because they lived all over. Some were from North Arlington, one was from Springfield and Westfield. But over the course of their 4 years here at St. Peter's, they formed a friendship so close that they wanted to spend the last bit of their high school experience together. The third thing was Dr. Gomez kept his word to have an in-person celebration, and we gathered in July, half a class at a time, to celebrate the academic achievements of the boys. All three of those things demonstrated to us the commitment this school has to these young men, the relationships these boys form while they're here, and the pride the school has in turning these boys into men for others. Aiden would call it the Jesuit way, but it has a name, cura personalis. It's a distinct characteristic of Jesuit schools where they truly care for the person, mind, body, and soul. And this school actually has a unique way to get these boys to start to figure out their place in the world. For instance, Liam, our oldest, came to prep a mediocre soccer player, but he discovered cross country, fell in love with the sport, and is now running at Holy Cross. Aiden has taken his interpretation of what it means to be a man for others and is in the Navy ROTC program at Holy Cross. And Brian, while he's only a sophomore, you can already see the seeds of a love for history to grow. And it doesn't stop with the boys. The school, despite being an hour away from some of us, I mean, we live in Fanwood, does a really good job reaching out to parents. In any given year, we've gone to various tailgates, the fashion show, the gala, the golf outing, the retreat day with Father Rosardo, and parents on the plaza. So there's lots of ways for parents to stay connected. And even though we're an hour away, and even though we were remote this past year, we've never really had a problem communicating with the staff or the faculty if we ever had a concern for the boys. So we feel like our needs are being met too. So I appreciate you taking the time today to learn a little bit more about St. Peter's. I hope I was able to give you a little bit of a glimpse into what this place is like as a parent. I'm now going to pass you off to one of these wonderful prep men, Johnnie Brooker. Johnnie is a senior from East Orange, and he's also the student council president. I'm sure you will enjoy hearing from his perspective on being a prep student.
Thank you. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Especially our future prep men and your parents. First off, I would like to say thank you for taking out the time on your Sunday to listen to me speak today virtually. Like you just heard, my name is Johnnie Brooker, and I am the student council president here at St. Peter's Prep. So far, this year has been unlike any other. Being on campus twice a week due to our hybrid model only reaffirms my love for this school. I'm a senior, and I remember coming to my fall open house as an 8th grader. Boy, oh boy, did time fly. I also remember my freshman for a day like it was yesterday. That day made me see how prep contrasted with other schools. I visited schools such as Seton Hall Prep, Xavier High School in Manhattan, St. Benedict's Prep, and Roselle Catholic. But the things that set prep apart for me, and it made my decision very easy, was the camaraderie, the brotherhood, rigorous academics, competitive athletics, the central location in Jersey City, and the main focus on why we attend high school, which is the preparation for college. So aside from that, here are some facts about me. Like you just heard, I live in the great city of East Orange, which is located in Essex County. During normal circumstances, pre-COVID, I was taking the train every single day. I know that sounds bad, but trust me, it is not. Some things I've been involved in for the past few years have been student council. I've been on it since my freshman year. I played on the freshman basketball team, but found my true calling in track and field, which is a great program. Shout out to Coach Caulfield. I'm also part of the diversity board, which presents functions and implements different cultural events, as well as organizing in-depth conversations with the student body on certain topics. I'm also on campus ministry team. I'm a student ambassador and a big brother. So as you can see, I'm fully invested in this school, and that is because I developed so much love for St. Peter's Prep. This school has shaped me into being who I am today, ready to go and make an impact on this world and society that we live in. I'm here to tell you all I was able to get involved with things at this school. The men who graduated before me have done it as well. And soon enough, your sons will be able to follow through too. I promise you, it is so easy to join something and to be a part of something here at St. Peter's Prep. We have a slew of clubs. Once you see the list, you will be amazed. It's funny because the majority of the student body is active in at least one co-curricular activity. We have a variety of clubs ranging from cultural, spiritual, video games, culinary, robotics, whatever you are thinking of, we got it. It is an extensive list, but if that list isn't enough for you, your sons can easily create your own club. And all you need is 2 or more other students and a teacher to moderate it. And simple as that, you have your new club. So with that being said, future prep men and parents, it was a pleasure speaking to you all virtually. I wish you all the best. I hope to see you on campus soon.
Greetings from Grandin Warren. Welcome to St. Peter's Prep. My name is Michael Gomez, and I'm the president here. Please know that I speak to you first as an alum and second as your president. Just to be clear, my time as president is limited. There is a beginning and an end. Now, I hope that end is about 15 years from now, but there is an end. What does not have an end date is me being a graduate of St. Peter's Prep. It truly is prep for life. Prep for life. When I walk down the St. Peter's Prep hallways, which will hopefully someday be your hallways, it is with the greatest reverence and respect. I'm in awe of this place. This is the house that has built me and so many of us. And I hope that someday it will do the same for you. One way to explain prep is through the words hard work, good work, and our work. We are forming the minds, hearts, souls, and characters of young men. That's hard work. We are preparing them to not only navigate this world and all its sometimes frightening challenges, but we are also preparing them to change it. As we would say, we are preparing them to put a dent in the universe. And that's hard work. From the student's point of view, doing a couple hours of homework after a couple hours of practice, after a long commute, and feeling mentally and physically exhausted, and then getting up to do it again, and remembering to put a belt on and tuck your shirt in, that's hard work. But it's good work. We want students to find the joy in that hard work, the joy in friendship, the joy in success, the joy in being a part of something greater than yourself, and the joy in feeling like you are one in a million. Good work, because the work we do here is God's work. God is present in every bit of it all. Sub umbra Petri, under the shadow or the protection of Peter. Good work. And it's our work. Whether you are president or freshman or prep mom or alumnus or soccer coach, your success is my success and your failure is my failure. And we do this together, together, together. I'm thrilled to have you at our virtual open house. But I'm even more excited to have you here in person. And don't worry, when the time is right, you will be here in person. And you will experience our energized and welcoming environment and feel that wonderful sense of history on this modernized campus. We're excited to have you in downtown Jersey City. I can't wait to see you here. Just be patient. Now, when I think of downtown Jersey City, so much has changed since I took the 14 bus to prep from Bayonne as a student. The addition of the Newark Avenue pedestrian mall, the addition of the tallest building in New Jersey, the booming waterfront filled with that unbelievable energy, the transportation hubs, the light rail, the ferries, not to mention 3-path trains within a mile. And St. Peter's Prep has not just kept pace with all of this. St. Peter's Prep is its gem, the gem of downtown Jersey City. Now, I know the skyline is the $1 million view, but St. Peter's Prep to me, and someday to you, is the center of it all. And when I think of our prep, the word I think of is priceless. And that's because we are so much more than our buildings. It's the entire prep experience. It's pride and glory. It's the prep magic. And I can't wait for you to be a part of it. Enjoy the day today. Let's go prep.
These are the 4 presentations you're about to hear: campus ministry and service, guidance, college counseling in the Browning Center, athletics, and finally academics. Each presentation will run for 20 minutes, which includes time for live questions. Academics is intentionally last in case the questions take us beyond the 20 minutes. We encourage you to ask questions during the presentations, and please visit our website if you would like to contact anyone for further information. And now our first presentation, campus ministry and service.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Dougherty. I'm the Director of Campus Ministry here at Prep. Thank you for joining us today. So campus ministry is responsible for the spiritual life of the school. We provide opportunities for our students to grow closer to God and to one another, and also to learn more about themselves. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about some of our programs, and then I'm going to turn it over to one of my colleagues, Mr. Halloran, a little bit more. So let's start with retreats. A lot of our work in ministry involves retreats. If you've never been on a retreat before, the basic definition of one is that it's a chance to step away from your daily life, usually going somewhere that you're not familiar with, somewhere off campus, to spend some time where you can really reflect on yourself, spend some time in silence and prayer, and to get to know the people who you're on retreat with. We have a 4-year retreat program here at St. Peter's, and each retreat is really tailored to the needs and the interests of a particular class. So freshman year, it's all about figuring out what the school is all about and what's your place in it. And the other retreats that follow a similar kind of pattern. Every student at Prep will go on at least 2 retreats, freshman and sophomore year. Junior and senior year, the retreats are a little bit longer, a little bit deeper. So we have those as optional. We want that to be something that students opt into as opposed to something that we force them to go on. That being said, about 90% of our students end up going on those retreats. That's not because they get any credit for it. It's not because, I incentivize them in any way. It's because they talk to their friends who go on the retreats. They hear that it's a great time and they decide that they want to go themselves. So that's my general advice to you about everything we're going to tell you about Prep. Talk to somebody who you might know who went here or who is currently going here. Hear about their experience because I think those words mean a lot. So that's our retreat program. The last thing I'll say about that is that freshman year begins with a retreat. It's called Ignite. We spend a full day with the entire freshman class on campus, getting to know what the school is all about, learning about our philosophy and our mission and spirituality, and also starting to get to know each other and forming what we call the Prep Brotherhood. At the end of that retreat, not only will you have a better sense of what it means to be at a Jesuit school, you will know some of your classmates. So when you go into that first day of class, you already have some friends, which I think is pretty great at the beginning of freshman year. Another big part of what we do is service. And when I talk about service, I mean direct relational contact with people who are poor and or marginalized. We're sending you out into communities. We want you to actually meet people, learn their names, and hear their stories. A big part of being at a Jesuit school is becoming a man for and with others. That's a phrase you will hear all the time if you come here. And that means that we want all of our students to care about the suffering of the world and want to do something about it. Service is the first step. So we have service requirements for the first 3 years to make sure that you get that important experience. And then senior year, there's no requirement. There's no kind of specific hour attachment. And that's because hopefully by senior year, our students want to do service on their own. And they do, which is a wonderful thing. Service for those first 3 years happens through either students doing it on their own, finding a service agency and going and doing the hours there, or through school-sponsored activities, which happen after school or on the weekends. The summer between sophomore and junior year, we also offer a number of service immersion trips. Those are usually week-long trips where you're living in a community, learning about their history and culture, and doing some really important service with the people there. Some of those are local. We've got some that are in North Jersey, ones that go to like Trenton, Camden, Philadelphia. But we also have ones that go further away, West Virginia, Los Angeles, even one international trip that goes down to Quito in Ecuador. So it's a lot of different opportunities to learn what's going on in the world and see a way that you can respond to it. And that leads me to the last point that I wanted to make, which are our justice programs. We hope that service is the first step for our students, and that leads to them wanting to change the world for the better, to try to create a world that's more like the world that God would want us to live in. A big part of that, because there are numerous ways that students get involved in advocacy, but a big part of that is our yearly Arupe Week conference. This is something that we do on campus every year in March. It's a week-long summit where we take Catholic social teaching and apply it to a relevant issue of the day. So in the past, we've looked at social issues like homelessness, refugees, mass incarceration, the environment, these big picture questions. And what does it mean as people of faith to respond to them? During this summit, we have guest speakers come in, we have classroom activities, service activities, movie viewings, all kinds of different activities that allow our students to look at the issue from several different angles and figure out ways that they can respond to it and ways that they can get involved. So that's a great way that we take that practical service experience and turn it into a kind of macro level, trying to change the world type of action. So now I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Mr. Halloran, tell you a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Dougherty. So I'm Kieran Halloran. I'm the Jesuit scholastic here in campus ministry and in our religion department. So Mr. Dougherty outlined some of the sort of big programs that we have at Prep. However, I want to point out that these programs are also supplemented by many of our ongoing opportunities for students throughout the school year. So Mr. Dougherty talked about our retreat programs, and in addition to those, and we provide opportunities for students to really continue to grow outside of the retreat experience. So this includes offering different, what we call CLC groups or ILC groups, Christian living communities or interfaith living communities, which offer regular opportunities for students to come together, to reflect and pray together. And then we also have what we call, and it started last year, our Montserrat prayer group, which again offers regular opportunities for students to join in prayer and for students to sort of really grow in our Ignatian charism that we have here at Prep. In addition to these opportunities, we have other opportunities through our school liturgies and through our reconciliation services. So over the course of the year, we have a variety of different liturgies marking different important either feasts or important times of the year. And what's important for these too is that these are opportunities that really engage the whole school. So whether or not you are Catholic, whether or not you are Christian, we provide opportunities for all of our students to pray and to really sort of get in touch with what is most meaningful in their lives. So this includes our Thanksgiving prayer service, which we have as an interfaith service, drawing on the different religious traditions that our students belong to. And this also involves having different prayers marking the holy days of other faith traditions for our students and offering them opportunities to share their own faith tradition with our Prep family. And lastly, about service, Mr. Dougherty mentioned our immersion trips and a little bit about the service requirements, but we also have a lot of student involvement through our food pantry, which we're actually just in the middle of one of our food drives or just starting up one of our food drives, and also through our Pax Christi Service and Justice Club. And this would provide different opportunities for students to engage in service with different partners around Jersey City. Of course, it looks a little different this year. However, we're continuing to offer opportunities for students to engage in socially distant service work to support our partners in Jersey City and to, as Mr. Dougherty said, get in touch with this sort of really important aspect of their own formation of engaging in service. So I believe at this point, I'll just take any questions that people have. A specific service project that students have done.
I can gladly answer that one. So I saw that question come in and I immediately thought of something that actually happened this summer. As you can imagine, we've had to get really creative with all these, wonderful retreats and service programs during the pandemic. And service in particular has been challenging because, as you can imagine, a lot of our partners aren't taking volunteers right now. So what we did over the summer is we reached out to a lot of our community partners and we said, are there other ways we can help you out? Are there ways that we can participate with you in a socially distanced way? Are there ways that we can still be there? Because, our students want to help. Our families want to help. So a great example of that is I believe this was in mid-July. We had some of our partners at Patterson Habitat for Humanity reach out to us. They were working with a local food bank who was putting together a lot of food, just kind of like mass food deliveries that was going out to families who were in one of the medical centers up there. So families who either they had somebody at the medical center who was dealing with COVID, or I believe it was also going to some of the staff who were working there long hours, as you can imagine. The need for groceries was important for their families. So what our students did is they went to the warehouse where they had all these just like, pounds and pounds and pounds of food donations, loaded them up into cars, brought them over to the medical center, unloaded them, got them up to all the people who needed them. And this was a job that when I first talked to my friend at Habitat, she was saying, like, this is going to take us probably about a week to do all this unless we can get some volunteers. Would any of your boys be interested? They knocked it out in a morning. They were able to go there. They got it all together, brought it over, dropped it off. It was maybe 2 hours worth of work. She called me afterwards. It was like, I can't believe how great these prep boys were. And I would say that, that's a bigger kind of dramatic example. But I would say that's pretty indicative of how our students respond to service, that kind of work ethic and that desire to really help.
Thank you. We're also getting a number of questions about students from different faith backgrounds. And I'd like to sort of mention a couple of things, and then Mr. Dougherty, if you want to add to it. Sure. I would say that primarily our whole experience, certainly have it, comes from a tremendous respect for where our students are coming from. And that, I think, plays out in so many ways. I'd mentioned our interfaith prayer service that we have, the opportunities for students leading prayers from different traditions over the course of the year. But I would want to emphasize too that even on our retreat programs, we are very intentional about presenting these programs so that students of all faith traditions and all or no beliefs can engage in that sort of important work of reflecting, that important work of really discovering meaning in their own lives. So certainly we are a Catholic school. We draw on the Jesuit tradition, but really try and I think by and large succeed at sort of accommodating or encouraging our students from all faith backgrounds to be engaged in this.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. And I would just add that at Prep, again, we are a Catholic school, but about 20% of our student body is non-Catholic. And so the things that we're doing, one, we want to respond to the reality of our student body. We want to make sure that we're not leaving out, this huge chunk of our student population. But also the things that we're doing, as Mr. Halloran said, in retreats and service, we think are beneficial of students from any faith or from no faith at all. That self-reflection, that ability to bond with other people, learning about these important issues in the world. Those are things that we think really cross religious boundaries. So we want all students to be able to benefit from them.
And I think it's worth pointing out too that a number of our students who aren't Catholic do end up on our campus ministry senior leadership team.
Yes.
And that, I think, for me is a real testament of the fact that our students feel so comfortable being engaged in their faith, being engaged in their beliefs, and being engaged with us in campus ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, atheist students lead retreats. It's really just the openness to be able to help their classmates grow and reflect that we're looking for. So yeah, it's been great. Speaking of retreats, I see there's a question here about how we've been doing retreats. I'll answer this one briefly. It has certainly been tricky. Like I said, creativity is definitely the buzzword in our office this year. Some of them we've been doing on campus. So during some of our during the day programs, we will have kind of distanced activities by homeroom, and then a virtual version that our students who are totally virtual can participate in. In those cases, they're doing a lot of group discussion, reflection, some guided prayer, things like that. Right now, we're in the process of arranging some weekend retreats. Those will likely just be day programs, so students will go somewhere during the day, leave after dinner, or come back the next day. Overnights right now is looking a little difficult, a little dangerous. But we do really believe that this is an important part of the student experience. Our students are coming by the office saying, are we doing retreats this year? Is this going to happen this year? So we're really trying to make it work the best that we can while still keeping everybody safe. I think another question, actually 2 questions I can answer briefly. A student asked, or a prospective student asked about service opportunities where you can use language skills to help. Absolutely. Especially up here in Hudson County, but even in some of our further afield places that we go, we work with a lot of Spanish speakers in particular. So a lot of the places that we go, they will often ask if any of the volunteers can speak even a little bit of Spanish. So that ends up being a very, very useful skill in our service program. And then the other question I just wanted to acknowledge briefly was confirmation program. We don't offer a confirmation program here at Prep, but we can provide service hours for students as they do their confirmation through a parish. We've done that before, kind of signed off on that. And you know, any other way that we can support students as they are going through the sacraments of initiation. We're certainly open to that. We've had conversations with students. We've helped them to kind of get connected with different opportunities, all that good stuff. I see another question about service. There's an opportunity for students to include an organization they currently work with for service hours. Absolutely. We are always open to new service agencies. I spoke before about how when we talk about service at Prep, we really want there to be some sort of a direct component. So that's really the criteria that I apply when a student asks me, you know, can I work at this place for my service hours? I want to make sure that they're actually going to get to work with people, meet people. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have to, you know, 100% of the time be, you know, I don't expect them to be social workers. But I also want to make sure that they're not, you know, kind of in the back office, not interacting with anybody. While that can often, you know, be very good for a nonprofit, our goal with the students is really to make sure that they get to meet people, hear their stories, and kind of make that human connection. So certainly, if a student is already involved in an organization, we are more than happy to at least consider that as a possibility. Another question. I wonder if this one would come up. What are the specific service requirements for graduation? So I mentioned the first 3 years we have hour requirements. Freshman year, it's about 10 hours. That's all handled through programs that happen kind of at school. Part of it is the Ignite retreat. There's a service activity on that all freshmen take part in. And then each homeroom has a service activity that kind of follows over the course of the year. Sophomore year, it's 10 hours, between 10 and 20 hours it kind of ends up being. There's a few different ways in which that happens. Usually students will find an organization and do it on their own, but we also offer a number of different opportunities that sophomores will jump on. So they'll go on a father-son day of service or a mother-son day of service. They'll do an after-school, you know, sandwich making and delivering the sandwiches, that kind of thing. Junior year is our biggest requirement. That is 60 hours. That's 60, just to be clear. And that is over the course of the year, including the summer. So that is when students have the opportunity to go on the service immersion trips. Those immersion trips take care of the entire 60 all at once, which does make them pretty popular, as you can imagine. But those are also, I would say, a more in-depth form of service. They are really kind of, you know, you're committing yourself pretty seriously if you go on one of those trips. So we find that, you know, guys aren't just showing up for the hours. They're going because they really want to be there. I know we may be getting close to time here, but yeah, a few more questions. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I believe we are sort of at our time. So.
Okay. I'm seeing a few more questions about the service. So what I'll say is please feel free to follow up with me. I'd be more than happy to tell you more about the details of these specific trips. I've been on a number of them myself, so I can speak from some experience. All my information is on the website. Same thing for Mr. Halloran. The one thing I'll say real quick, I saw this question come up. There is, in fact, a video game club. So there you go. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for your questions. We're now going to turn over to our next presentation, which will cover guidance in college counseling and the Browning Center.
Thank you, Mr. Dougherty. Good afternoon, everyone. And thanks for joining us on this Sunday afternoon. My name is Mr. Joe Giglio. I'm the Director of Guidance in College Counseling. I'm coming to you today from our Guidance Center, where our 9 counselors and our social worker do their wonderful work. This is my 10th year at St. Peter's Prep, and I came here after a 19-year career in college admissions. In guidance, we like to say that we put the word preparatory into St. Peter's Prep. And what do we mean by that? You know, that our job is to help your sons prepare for higher education and for the world ahead. Many of the parents listening today, may have had a very different experience of guidance in their day. We're very proud of the extensive guidance program that we have here at St. Peter's. It is a 4-year program. It's a class that meets weekly or once per cycle. And so, what do we do in guidance classes, right? It's about sharing what's going on in your life. It's about the journey of discovery and exploration of oneself, who you are as a person, exploring students' talents, both inside and outside the classroom, and thinking about what are the possibilities of the moment and possibilities in the future. Also covering things like issues of wellness and mental health. In freshman year, we particularly focus on the transition to prep, right? So in freshman guidance, our 2 freshman guidance counselors cover a curriculum that really helps our boys adjust to high school life, right? Many of our boys come from all over the state and even New York City and have many different experiences of middle school. And so getting them to acclimate to being a high school student, everything from how to take notes, how to study, how to have a social life, how to make friends, how to deal with challenges, all those things are covered in freshman year. In sophomore year, your son will transition to an upperclassman counselor like myself, and then they will have that counselor for the duration of their time at prep, and we'll work them through the entire rest of their career here. Sophomore year is really a year that focuses on self-discovery, right? Giving our boys an opportunity to kind of get to know themselves better and in a deeper way during those, formative years here in high school. So we'll do things like learn about and explore learning styles. We'll do personality tests, and we'll do career interest inventories. And that is all really kind of a soft setup for our major focus in junior year guidance, which is college counseling. Right? So what is college counseling today here at St. Peter's? It's really about not only the journey, but also the destination, right? How to find a good college for you, a good fit and a good match. And, as a good Jesuit school, we take a very Ignatian approach and, don't want our boys to just kind of default to what might be the easiest path to a good college option, but to really have them do a deep dive and understand what are those best fits for them and what works for them and for their families. I like to think that, a good college for a student is a place where they'll be challenged academically, where they will grow and exposed to different kinds of cultures and really have that time to grow, and technically our young men graduate as adults at the age of 18 here, but we like to think of those college years as sort of finishing school for adulthood and getting them prepared for that. Of course, also in junior year, we make sure that our young men are prepared for standardized testing. The world of standardized testing and college admissions is kind of really in flux given the pandemic, but nevertheless, we're here. We do offer our boys opportunities to prepare and take the PSAT, to get ready to take the SAT in senior year, and our curriculum. We've worked with our faculty very closely to make sure that over the course of the entire 4 years, our boys are really covering content that's going to match up appropriately to the standardized testing that is used for college admissions. In senior year, it's about getting those applications in and completing that college selection process, right? And then once that's all done, the second half of senior year is really about that next transition, getting your sons ready to be college students, to be treated as adults in the world and in the legal sense. And again, also to help them understand the additional formation that has to happen in the years ahead as they sort of fully mature into adulthood. You, the parents listening today, are our partners in this throughout, right? Our guidance counselors are very accessible to you along the way for any issues that may come up, and we'd like to have a good open relationship with parents in the context of the college process for sure. We have a number of programs that we do for our parents to kind of give you the big picture overviews, and then we'd like to meet with each family individually to make sure that the parents are well represented in the college selection process and that we all are rowing the boat in the same direction. So I'll encourage you to look at more information on our website, where you'll see bios of all of the guidance counseling team. You'll see information on college matriculation. We'll have a little bit of overviews there on our Of course, content and syllabus in the guidance classes, it's all there. And my contact information is there as well. For any questions you may have that don't get answered today or that may come up in the months ahead. Okay. So at this point, I'm very excited to turn it over to our next speaker and my colleague, Ms. Belkise Dallam.
Thank you so much, Mr. Giglio. Good afternoon. My name is Belkise Dallam, and I'm the Director of Diversity and Inclusion here at St. Peter's Prep. The work of diversity and inclusion was established in 2016 with the goal of helping to facilitate discussions and activities around race, equity, and inclusion. With this in mind, we work closely with our students, faculty, and staff to foster community and growth with strong roots in our Jesuit tradition. At Prep, we are committed to making sure that when your sons graduate, they are loving, committed to doing justice, intellectually competent, religious, and one of the most important in this office, open to growth. St. Ignatius teaches us about the importance of being men for and with others, which you have already heard. With this in mind, diversity, equity, and inclusion are also the core elements of Cura Personalis, the concept of educating the whole person in order to educate and empower them. Part of the work the office is involved in is the Student Diversity Board. Each year, a number of interested young men go through an application process to become members of the Student Diversity Board. They are then selected by their peers and trained on moderating difficult discussions, and they are trained on what it looks like to be a leader in our community. Each year, as you can imagine, looks very different, and activities are selected, created, and facilitated by our student board members with an open invitation to the entire school community. We have held events such as our Religion Roundtable, festivities to celebrate Latino Heritage Month, as well as Black History Month. We have also had opportunities to take students to different conferences where they have represented St. Peter's Prep, such as the Student Diversity Leadership Conference, which has been held in Tampa, Atlanta, and Tennessee. This year, we have held a number of roundtable discussions around the election and have invited students to attend these discussions. All of this work, combined with Prep's mission, helps to ensure that we become stronger as a community, especially for and with our students. We assist our students in carrying out the ideals of empathy, compassion, courage, and a commitment to doing justice, not only in their everyday lives, but in their future endeavors as well. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Christine Davis, the director of the Browning Center.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining this wonderful event. I am Christine Davis. I'm the director of the Browning Learning Center. As you can see, we have a beautiful space that also includes a testing room where students with accommodations can take their assessments. We also have some offices and a big space to fill with lots of different learners. Just briefly, a little bit about the process and the Browning Center and how it works for students with IEPs and 504 plans. When you go through the application process, if your son has IEP IEP documentation or a 504 plan in place, the application will ask you to go ahead and submit that documentation, and we encourage you to do so. I learned so much more about your son with that documentation. Once your son is admitted into St. Peter's Prep, you will have the opportunity to enroll your son in the Browning Center if you would like. When your son starts his time at St. Peter's Prep, I create his testing. I create a service plan for the St. Peter's Prep faculty that outlines all of his needs here at Prep. And that service plan will stay with your son throughout his 4 years at Prep. That documentation will include Prep-friendly suggestions. So much of this documentation is long, it's hard to read. I synthesize everything that's important, I advocate for your son, and I give the teachers what they need to go ahead and facilitate and accommodate your son during his time at Prep. My staff includes 4 other specialists, 3 of them are actually alumni of Prep, which is fantastic. 3 of my staff members are here on campus in the space working with students. And then I have 1 staff member that hosts virtual Zoom sessions with our at-home students. The Browning Center is open from 7:30 to 3:30 every day. If your son is enrolled in the center, they can access our space before school, as well as after school and throughout the day by appointment. Due to the COVID restrictions, we are doing everything appointment-based so that we can make sure that we're safe, we're socially distanced. We also need to make sure that we're seeing students when they're here on campus and providing that academic support. When your son accesses the center, he can meet with any of our specialists. Our specialists are very well-rounded, and through my whole entire staff, we can pretty much help your son with anything. And if we can't, we find somebody to do so.
No, I just see a couple of questions here actually about average SAT scores for graduates.
Great, yes, I was just looking at those, Ms. Dallam. I
Yeah.
can go ahead and give those. So our average SATs in recent years average in the 1225 to 1250 range for the entire senior class. 99% of our students do go to 4-year schools. That was also a question there. And then the other ones in terms of kind of contextualizing colleges in terms of likelies, et cetera, we take a customized 3-tiered approach to the college admission process here, where we ask each student and their family to craft, with our help, of course, a list of at least 10 colleges at the end of junior year, spread through the 3 categories. Reach schools that we know based on data, would be a smaller percentage chance of the student being admitted, and that could be based not only on the student's profile, but also, and more importantly, on the percentage acceptances at those schools, right? So at Stanford University, with their 3% acceptance rate, everybody, that school's a reach for everyone, right? So reach schools, and then sort of the mid group of schools, which we call target schools, schools where we feel good about the students' chances of being accepted. And then what we call yes schools, others might think of them as safety schools, but as my seniors have heard this 1,000 times, nobody wants to go to their safety schools. So we call them yes schools because they're schools that we know, again, based on our experience and our data, that's a school likely to say yes to your student. But more importantly, it's also a school that your son would be willing to say yes to. So that does take a little work, right? We could all come up with 100 schools that we know a student would get into, but we want to make sure that they are schools that that student would like to go to. Ms. Dallam, I think I see a question on diversity. You want to field that one?
On which one? Sorry.
I thought I saw a question about kind of what the diversity makeup is of our student body.
I don't see that.
Okay. Well, while you're looking for it, I could also just say generally, folks, I invite you to take a look at our school profile, which is available on our website, spprep.org/profile. And what you'll see there is the profile that we send to colleges, which has our demographic information. It has details on the average testing score, not just for the class, but then within different tiers, as well as information on where our students go to school.
Also, if you have any questions, you can also go onto our website and feel free to reach out to any of us. I know that there was some audio issue with Ms. Davis's presentation at the very end. But if you go on our website, you can definitely find her information and reach out to her individually.
I see sort of generally a question that I would that I'll answer in terms of kind of academic support. We've got the Browning Center, but we also do run things like directed study for our students who potentially need some additional academic support. I mentioned earlier on the mental health side that we do have a social worker here as well. So, again, our guidance counselors are able to work with students and families in terms of what their needs may be. And then when necessary and or appropriate, we do bring in our social worker as well. And I hope you noted when I said that there are 9 guidance counselors here and a social worker, that's a fantastic ratio in terms of how many students each counselor has in his or her caseload. So you could be assured of lots of personal attention here at St. Peter's Prep. Ms. Dallam, I'm going to check the clock behind me here to see how we're doing on time. I think we're a little bit ahead of the game, but I also don't think we're seeing any other questions that we need to address. Is Ms. Davis still with us? All right, I'm sorry, we're not able to hear Ms. Davis well, but I think she's probably trying to answer one of these questions, which is talking about our support services. We absolutely are able to accommodate our students, with various learning differences, and the Browning Center, will review students who have come in with accommodations and IEPs and 504s and come up with the appropriate planning. So we encourage folks who have specific questions about that to be in touch with Ms. Davis, and she will assist with that. So I think, Mr. Irvine, if I don't hear from you, otherwise I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to the next part of our presentation today. So our next presentation will cover PrEP's athletic program. So I'll turn things over to Mr. Rich Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Giglio. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rich Hansen. I'm the athletic director here at PrEP. And as everyone else has said, thank you for sharing a portion of your Sunday with us. I'm going to give you a very concise nuts and bolts presentation about our athletic program. And I think from the previously received questions, the presentation might answer most of those, but obviously we'll take some at the end. So St. Peter's athletic program consists of 19 sports. We have 46 teams on various levels, and our teams compete, as you can see, in 3 approved NJSIAA seasons: fall, winter, and spring. There is also a 4th season, which is considered summer recess period, and it's really the training period for our athletes, where they compete in competitions across the country, but also prepare in our weight room, speed and conditioning programs, and various other events throughout the country. So it's not on here, but that 4th season is a really, really important season for our guys. Facilities are open. We have athletic camps that a lot of our athletes work at. They do quite a bit of training here in the summer as time permits. So the one thing that is kind of important, because I know a lot of athletes, incoming players are multi-sport athletes. As you can see from the fall, winter, and spring, you can only choose one sport per season. So if you've been accustomed to playing football and soccer, obviously when you come to high school, you have to choose one of those sports, and so on. We have many 3-sport athletes, multi-sport athletes across the board who do a tremendous job in our program. And I think it's a very, from traditional sports like basketball and football and wrestling to very untraditional like rugby and even fencing crew. So I think it's a wide variety of opportunity for our athletes. The next thing I'd like to cover is our athletic staff. So we have 83 staff members comprised of obviously coaches, but we also have administrative assistant athletic director, an equipment manager, a director of NCAA compliance. We have 2 athletic trainers, a head athletic trainer and an assistant athletic trainer, and a strength and conditioning coach. And if you wish to contact any coach on the staff, obviously you can do so via the website. But all of our coaches are CPA first aid certified. Those who have not coached for 5 years in high school have to be certified in taking the fundamentals of coaching course. Everybody has to have a yearly concussion certification, and obviously this year, a little bit new to the scene is the COVID certification for all coaches. Everybody is fingerprint background checked, and for here at St. Peter's, Protecting God's Children certification is required. We also have heat acclimatization requirements and our gender equity certification. Some of the questions pertain to our athletic facilities. And on our next screen, you'll see we have quite a few on campus, but also utilize some sites around Hudson County and Jersey City. So the Memorial Gymnasium is obviously our main gym. The Humanities Strength Center. The Humanities also has an athletic training and treatment center. The crew team has an erg training center. And I'm coming from the Perkins Athletic Center, the newest piece of the athletic offerings, now 5 years old. Here at Perkins, we have the Tedesco Strength Center, the DeMarco Family Wrestling Room. And the Perkins Center is adjacent to JFK Field, which is home to football and soccer, lacrosse, rugby practices, games. We also have some other events. Obviously, a lot of our summer stuff takes place at JFK. We also utilize Caven Point, Jersey City, a facility not far from campus for our home football games and home soccer games. Track is prominent at the Jersey City Armory for indoor season, just 6 blocks away. St. Peter's University is home to our swim team and our water polo team. And we also utilize the track and outdoor season at Lincoln Park, not too far from campus as well. And our tennis team also utilizes Lincoln Park as a home site. Lastly, I think it's really important that you have a good feel for our athletic affiliations. We are members of the NJSIAA, which is the overriding governing body for our sports, but we're also members of the National Federation, the Super Football Conference, the HCIL, our lacrosse league, statewide lacrosse league, hockey league, fencing league. We're members of the HCTCA in track. In fact, our freshman JV and varsity just won the HCA championships this weekend. And our rowing group is part of the PSRA. Also not here is our rugby affiliation is USA Rugby. Some quick athletic facts. We are flagship members of the Hudson County League, just about 80 years old. And at St. Peter's, which is a great source of pride for us, we have over 700 athletes compete in the athletic program. As I said, our staff is 83. Last season, pre-COVID, the 1920 season, we captured 23 championships in our sports. And I've already mentioned 19 sports and 43 teams. That varies. Some years it's 43, some years it's 48, depending on the number of athletes that come on out. Last season, source of pride for myself, 5 of our coaches were tabbed as coaches of the year by various organizations in their respective sports. So that's a synopsis of what we do and who we are. Be happy to take some questions. Hopefully I've answered some through the presentation, but if you have any, I'd be happy to take them. How is the soccer team? Soccer team is very good. Last year we won the county championship. There is no county championship this year, so we won't be competing for it, but the team is doing very well. Fairly young team, so we should be really, really good in the future. A great question about tryouts. We have a policy here at school that tryouts have to consist of a minimum of 6 hours of competition and evaluation. So that's across the board in all of our sports. And I say a minimum, some exceed that and go to 10 hours depending on field and facility availability. Every athlete receives an evaluation card. So if an athlete does not make the team, he knows exactly where his shortcomings were and is encouraged, obviously, to stay involved and hopefully come back out for the team in the future. Any plans to add squash as a sport? No, I don't have any plans to add squash as a sport, but we've expanded the athletic program tremendously in the last 10 years, the last really 15 years, so you never know. A hockey team practices primarily out at the Prudential Center. We also have some ice time in Secaucus and at Pershing Field here in Jersey City. The golf practices in Essex County, various courses. We use a driving range here in Hudson County, and the golf team 2 years ago was very competitive. Last year we were young, and we're expected to hopefully have a really good season this year. Total kids for both the soccer and basketball teams. That's a good question. The athletes that make it, the final rosters, are somewhere around 20 athletes per roster. So we have 3 levels in soccer: freshman, JV, and varsity. So we're somewhere around 20 to 23 per level. When trying out as a freshman for the soccer team, when do you know you are on the team? As I said, we offer 6 hours evaluation. Every player is spoken to directly by their coach. No lists are posted. We meet with players and make sure that, obviously, like I said, that their evaluations are reviewed, so everybody has a starting point from where to go, where they need to go to. How's the basketball team? Basketball team was excellent last year. Expected to be very good again this year. We offer 3 levels in basketball: freshman, JV, and varsity. Our head coach is Alex Mirabel. He was one of those 5 coaches of the year last year, and as with all of our coaches, can be contacted on the website. How competitive is prep among other schools? As I said, very competitive. Does practice for sports take place in person? Yeah, we're practicing in person. We've been, as per NJSA guidelines, we phase in our sports in late July, and right now we're currently toward the tail end of the fall season for soccer. Football still has a little bit to go, God willing, but obviously all that is adjudicated by the NJSAA and the safety climate. Where do we rank in soccer? We started out in the top 20. I'm not sure if we're still in the top 20, but the soccer team is very competitive. Is there a JV hockey team? Yes, there is a JV hockey team. Last year we had 2 JV teams. Depending again on numbers, we will have 1 or 2 underclass teams designated as either freshmen or another JV. How many kids try out for the freshman baseball team? A lot. I think last year we were in the 80s again, and coaches do a phenomenal job of offering extended time. Here at the Perkins Center, we have batting cages. They do some work outside at JFK, and then obviously at Caven Point for the bulk of our practices and baseball games. We do not offer scholarships for sports. That would be illegal for the NJSIAA, and I think that was covered previously on how financial aid is attained here at St. Peter's, but it's not through the athletic program. Hockey and all winter sports, question about tryouts. Hockey and all winter sports this year start on December 3rd, and that season will be truncated just like the rest of it during this COVID period, but usually it's November 15th, but it's a little delayed this year. How are the swim teams separated? Not sure I understand that question. We have a varsity swim team that's extremely competitive. Coach Imus does a phenomenal job with that team. And again, they'll be starting on December 3rd this year. But the guys train up at St. Peter's University, and most of them are in club swimming as we speak now in the off season. Team rosters really depend on the sport. We don't really have a number. Really depends on the sport. Football is about 70. Soccer is about 20, 25. There's a question about the volleyball team. Volleyball team is extremely competitive. Coach Stewart does a tremendous job with our guys. Traditionally, top 1 or 2 in the county, and usually advance very far in the state playoffs. Very competitive team. We practice at the alumni gymnasium here on campus, and that roster is usually, again, about 18 to 20 guys. Total number of guys in the hockey program between JV, depending on if we have 1 or 2 programs, in varsity, somewhere around 45 guys, 50 guys. It's a great question about a GPA. What does a student's GPA have to be permitted to compete in sports? There isn't a GPA per se. We do have an academic rule that pertains to sports, and I'll be very honest with you, we have not had many, if any, athletes become ineligible during the course of the year because of academic lack of proficiency. There's so much help here, and that's another question that was asked. There's so much support, academic support. The expectation for athletes is to be as good or better than everybody else in the school. We have teacher support. The Browning Center is tremendous. We have peer tutoring. Most athletes are involved in one aspect of that support, but beyond that, do a tremendous job in the classroom as well as the athletic arena. How many teams are there for every sport? Good question. It really depends on the sport. For soccer, there's 3. Football is 3. It really depends on the sport. And as I said, I talked about hockey and some of the other sports. Do you find that students who have never participated in a particular sport can try out for the first time? Or the program is for people who already have experience? I think, again, it's a good question. I think that varies by sport. I can speak for some of the fall sports since we're in the middle of it. Football, soccer, have a lot of guys who have played before, for sure. But there are also a fair number of people who have played other kinds of football, street soccer, and try to come out and compete, and by and large do a very good job. And I think that's true of water polo, because it's a fairly new sport, cross country, and also for crew. Other opportunities with soccer coaches before school, like a summer camp. Yes, we offer summer camps here. They begin in June, and a flyer will go out in March with exact dates, times. Most of our camps take place here at JFK, but some of them are at Caven Point and at those other facilities, Lincoln Park, as I said before. The bowling team, a very competitive team. Mr. Reese is the head bowling coach. There's about a dozen guys on the roster. He's also in the building at St. Peter's full time, and he can be contacted via the website as well. What time does swim practice begin? Swim practice usually starts at 4 o'clock, between 4 and 4:30. At St. Peter's University, really depends on the college's university swim team and their structure, but we brace ours against theirs. And we do have one varsity swim team. There is very little time and facilities and available competition for a JV per se, but we have varying levels of competitiveness on the varsity team. How are summers handled for multi-sport students? Will students be pulled in different directions by coaches? Good question. So we've had, as I said before, we have a lot of multi-sport athletes. And I think we leave it on the athlete. What is so great about what we do, because we try to coordinate it between the coaches, the events that take place, practices, workouts, are often not conflicting, so that athletes do have a chance to do multiple sports if they wish to do so in the summer. What we try to tell people and try to tell our athletes, you can do that for a certain period of time, and then the fall sport, the next season. So if you're on a fall sport, that should at some point take precedence as the summer progresses, so that you're in full preparation for that first season in the fall. How many guys try out for the varsity basketball team? Really depends. The basketball season is upon us, and we'll probably, for varsity, there'll probably be about 30 guys trying out, 35 guys trying out. How high did St. Peter's rank in basketball last season? Not sure where we finished, somewhere in the top 10. This year we'll open up somewhere high in the top 10, maybe in the top 5. Athletic fees. So we don't charge for athletic fees. We try to include that in everything else that you have to pay for here at St. Peter's, but we don't have anything that exceeds our tuition and fees to compensate for any athletic fees. So we really focus on getting the best equipment, the best training facilities, and really do that without creating any more of a financial burden to families. We talked about tryouts. Fencing team is tremendous. 2 years ago, we were ranked number 1 in the state. They had a very good year last year, and we expect them to be really competitive this year. What is our crew team like? Crew team is awesome. As I said, we have a really tremendous facility here at school, and we have a really competitive environment in our crew program. It's built up over the last 5 or 7 years. Coach DeCarvajal is our head coach, and Coach McNally is in the building. He can also be contacted via the website and answer specific questions for our crew team. Transportation, we're getting close to time, but transportation available to and from practices. We do have team buses leaving every day. It's a little skewed this year because of COVID, but we do have transportation to and from practices made available to our athletes. For some, it's mandatory. For others, it's not. So that really depends on the sport that you're playing. How many games are there for the soccer season? In a regular soccer year, we're up around 30 games. This year is condensed. We'll probably play 15 to 18 games in the hockey season. In the soccer season because of COVID. But that's going to be true for all of our sports, and that's going to be true in every school and every high school. All right, I love the questions. We're right at our time limit. I encourage you to please email me. I'd be happy to answer questions. Obviously my number is on the website as well. Are welcome to call me or to email me, and I'd be happy to answer as many questions as I could. Thank you. Our last presentations will be presented by members of our academic department. So they'll take over from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Coach Hansen, and thank you for an unforgettable night at MetLife Stadium last fall for a state championship, a great night in prep history, and for all that athletic success last year. Good afternoon. My name's Anthony Keating, and I'd like to join in everyone's welcome to you to St. Peter's Prep today. We are going to have a chance to share with you a little bit about your son's academic experience at Prep now, and then after a bit of presentation, take questions. I'd like to also add that I'm a member of the history faculty, but I think just as importantly, I'm an alum of St. Peter's Prep, and maybe most importantly, I'm a parent of a son who attended St. Peter's Prep, graduated in 2010. And still consider it a blessing. So I'd like to say once again, I'm going to present a little bit about the freshman year experience, then just a little bit about specifically history, and then turn it over to our other faculty members here at Prep. So welcome once again. And with regard to the freshman experience at St. Peter's Prep, a freshman's first year schedule is going to be very, very in the classic liberal arts mode. Many centuries of great liberal arts tradition embodied in this. Your son will take English, world history, science, algebra, religion, Latin, and then one semester each of art, studio art, and then music, semester of music. We have a representative from each of those departments here today to speak and then take questions. And we're also going to tell you a little bit about our honors courses and our AP classes available to students. After that, Ms. Trish Fitzpatrick, our Director of Marketing and Outreach, will be joining us to help direct your questions to the various faculty members and presenters. We'll begin taking questions, though, only after our first three presentations, and then again after the last three. So I begin with just a little bit about history at Prep, just very briefly. The history sequence at Prep has 3 years required of history. In first year, we have world history, here symbolized by our ancient Greek helmet. And then we also have required junior year and senior year U.S. history. We have our colonial hat here symbolizing that experience. World history is a great survey course of the past really 6,000 years of how human civilization has developed from the ground right to the vastly interconnected global economy that your son will be living in today. Your son is much more likely to be working and interacting and even traveling internationally than we were just a few years back at the time we were students in high school. And we want to prepare our students to be able to not just participate, but be active leaders in a pluralistic, very, very fast moving, competitive and diverse and changing world. So it's a very, very exciting to teach history at this time in the world. Once again, it'll be World Civ first year for freshmen. Then in junior year, US 1, which takes the students from the colonial era right to the Civil War. And then in senior year, US 2, which will go from just after the Civil War right up to the present. That sequence will also allow, if a student would like, in sophomore year, to take an AP course in world history for a continuing in-depth treatment of world history. Our big focus is not just dates and events, but our big focus is skill development to allow your son what we call great peripheral vision or court vision of participating in a global scale. So we don't want your son to ever look at a place in the United States or a place on a world map and just draw a blank. We want them to be able to take a look at a map and then have some literacy, historical literacy, economic literacy, cultural literacy about all those places on the map. Those skills, though, that we're looking to develop are critical thinking. We want your sons to be able to think for themselves and to lead. And to do that, that means critical close reading, training and practice in close reading of text, and then critical writing. All our students, not just AP students, will get training in doing critical writing. So it's a great grounding. And all our students come back from college really proud to tell us how they hit the ground running in college. And it's very, very gratifying for us at Thanksgiving when they come back from their first couple of months of college and they're just really excited about how well they are doing. The skills we're looking to develop can be even further enhanced if your son decides to take the AP cycle in history in AP 1 and AP 2 of US history. And Ms. Marianne McElroy taught at the college level before she began teaching AP here at St. Peter's Prep. And her students get a very, very thorough workout. Coach Hansen isn't the only one who gives students a thorough workout. I'd like to say just lastly, we also offer electives in we have an AP US government elective available as well, and then one this year in 21st century global issues, and then a law seminar as well. I'm like some alum have come back from past lives in the professional world, and I'm a retired attorney, and so I teach the law seminar. Lastly, Ms. McElroy asked me to please toot our horn a little bit and say that our AP students routinely outperform the national average in those classes. So that should take care of the history sequence at Prep. And what I'd like to do is turn the attention now over to our representative from Performing Arts, Mr. Pat McCoy. Take it away, Pat.
Thank you, Anthony. Good afternoon, everybody. And again, thank you for being here this afternoon on your Sunday afternoon. I'm going to share a slideshow to help me get through what is a wide range of electives that cover a very wide range of creative opportunities for your young men. And the only reason I got to share it is because if I don't, there's a possibility that I might forget something. So I'm a member of the Fine and Performing Arts Department. I am one of the visual art teachers. You find me right now in my classroom. Everything you see on here is going to be a photo of students or student work. As a freshman, your young men would be taking a semester of Introduction to Art and an Introduction to Music. The art course mirrors the history department in that we focus on cultures that they may be talking about in the history department and work on art projects that revolve around or come out of that culture. On the left-hand side of your screen, you see some samples of freshman art projects. There are also opportunities outside of the courses. There's the chorus, which is Vox, which freshmen can audition for and try out for. There's a concert band and jazz band, which is also open to freshmen. There's also an art club, which is not listed here, which is available for freshmen. In the art club, we generally do some like expanded experiences. We've dyed shirts, we've gone on field trips, and we try to just kind of expand on what the class already is. We're going to start talking about electives, and we've broken them down into years. These are sophomore electives. There's a lot of opportunities here for students to express themselves. And again, these two pieces of artwork are sophomore artwork. There's Principles of Architecture and Beginning Processes. The music list is long, so is the creative writing list. These all fall under the Fine and Performing Arts. Our senior elective list junior and senior list even gets longer. Again, these are all junior and senior works, junior and seniors performing. One of the big advancements, or one of the great courses we have, is the Advanced Portfolio, which is a full year class at the senior level for students who have really excelled in artwork and really want to take a year to explore some of their own projects and really generate their own curriculum within the visual art. We also have Architecture, which is a semester course, and Sculpture 1 and 2, which are each semester courses, and those are junior, senior level courses. I'm going to show very quickly here, just these are our presences on social media. That is the website where you can find all the teachers and a breakdown of the classes and photos specifically from the classes. Vox is the chorus. So this is their Facebook, Facebook. These are both of our Instagram pages. For the art department, we're probably putting up 1 or 2 photos a week. You can see students currently working and what they're currently working on and kind of what they're doing in the classroom at all levels. This is a breakdown of our faculty. As a visual art teacher, I'm very qualified to answer your visual art questions. If you have very specific questions for the performing arts or for the theater, for creative writing, I've included their email addresses here if you want to ask them very specific in-depth questions. They're also found on the school website, or if you go through the website I showed you before, you can also find contact information for them. I think that the visual and performing arts is a huge aspect in the community here at St. Peter's Prep. I think you're going to be hard pressed to find another program that is as diverse as our program is in terms of electives offered and in terms of opportunities offered. There's just not another program like it. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Catie McNally in the English department.
Hi, I am so happy to be able to talk to you about the, excuse me, if I can, to talk to you about the English department here at Prep. We work really hard and very collaboratively to sort of sustain and always develop our contribution to the Jesuit mission in encouraging our students to grow and encouraging them to be open and encouraging them to become more literate, and in doing so, empowering their voices to be the change that, they will be in this world. We keep them very busy. A brief breakdown is we have freshman English, and then we have freshman English honors. And admission to that honors section is determined by the placement test. Then we have sophomore English and sophomore English honors. Sophomore English honors is really at the discretion of the department. It involves A's in every previous marking period in English and teacher recommendation. Then we have junior English honors, and then we have AP English language. Again, the AP course and the honors course is again by departmental permission with the same set of parameters as I mentioned earlier. Senior year, we have our senior classes are electives, which is really fun. Some of our electives are African American literature, science fiction and fantasy, literature of New York City, man's search for meaning, and dystopian literature. All of those electives use all of the same benchmarks and all of the same sort of styles of assessment, so that the student experience is continuous, but each of the material with which they are working, has appealed to them in some way because they've applied to be in these classes. In the English department, we're keeping them very busy. They're going to write all the time. They're going to write in relationship to the literature that they're reading all the time. They're going to be encouraged to develop their own reading schedules, their own schedules for vocabulary and things like that with our assistance and monitoring. And we really are just helping them embrace the joy that there is in reading about lives which we will never live. And then through that, developing our empathy, developing our understanding of the common human experience, opening our hearts to things that we may not necessarily understand, arguing over these big essential questions, and sometimes coming to the determination that we don't know. We keep our, like everything academic, like everything at St. Peter's Prep, we're always looking to keep the bar high, to encourage them for greatness, to push them to push themselves. Our job is to challenge them and then to teach them the skills and give them the internal strength to meet these challenges. It's a beautiful process of growth. I love it. We also, in keeping it very competitive, we also manage within the Jesuit mission to meet them, try to meet each student where they are, and find out what that student needs to become more empowered and more successful. And I don't know exactly how we do it, but it happens on this campus all over. And I think it's that magic that Dr. Gomez referred to in his statement. The boards are doing analysis, they'll do research papers, critical thinking, critical writing, close reading, video presentations, podcasts. They create, we try to give them lots of different creative outlets to express their responses to things. My seniors made a series of videos last year, which were fantastic and pretty hilarious, most of them. They are pretty well prepared in terms of analysis. Backing on to what Mr. Keating said, that when the boys come back from college, they feel that they've been really empowered. They feel that they've stepped ahead of the game with some of their new peers in these college campuses, and they've it's one of those things they recognize in the rearview mirror, and they're so proud. And they always come into class to visit, and they always wind up, I ask them to talk to my guys that are in the room a little bit, and they always, they're just so proud to tell about how they felt really ready to go when they got to college. Our reading list, we're always trying to look for contemporary works. We're always trying to diversify the voices. There's poetry, fiction, nonfiction, some very familiar probably old titles for you guys. We have Shakespeare, we have Catcher in the Rye, we have Gatsby, we have Mockingbird, we have Things Fall Apart, we have The Kite Runner, we have The Glass Castle. Lots of poetry, lots of short stories, lots of beautiful moments of sort of spontaneous discussions and whatnot, and we love it, and we're really proud of it. So thank you for giving a little bit of your rainy Sunday to us. And now we have any questions for anyone that has just spoken, Mr. Keating, Mr. McCoy, or myself.
Yeah, hi, it's Trish Fitzpatrick here. It looks like we have a question for Miss McNally, which would be to comment on English placement for the freshmen.
Yes, the freshmen coming in take a placement exam, and that's sort of a comprehensive exam that really measures reading comprehension, close reading skills, critical thinking, and then through that they write an essay or a series of answers, and that's part of what is used to determine who would be successful in our freshman honors.
Thank you. A follow-up question for Miss McNally. Is there a summer reading list?
There is a summer reading list. We're really proud of our summer reading list because it's this giant menu. It's like a menu you see in a diner. And we have it all broken down by genre and fiction and nonfiction. And every year, the freshmen, let's say, will get a list of, say, 5 titles. They have to choose one of those 5 titles. But then they have this incredible menu of other titles to choose from. So they'll all be reading 2 books. The honors and the AP have slightly bigger reading requirements, but everybody does summer reading. And it's been really very successful because of the choice and because we've tried to, put out titles out there that are very appealing to them.
Ms. McNally, somebody's asking if you'd be willing to provide a copy of the summer reading list.
I sure can. I don't have access to it right now, but I can get our department chair, Mr. Caulfield, to absolutely do that. If they wouldn't mind emailing me, I can forward that to Mr. Caulfield and he'll get to them probably right away.
Okay, great. I'm just going to give your email address so you can look out for that. Okay, I think that's it for this section. So I think what we're going to do, we've got an art question for Mr. McCoy. Is it acceptable to hand in an art portfolio along with your application? That's sort of an admissions question in a way, too. We are happy to look at anything. Mr. McCoy, want to add?
100%, absolutely. And again, that's mostly an admissions question, but what I'd like to add is a lot of California universities are asking for art portfolios and are asking for creative portfolios. So the idea that you're already starting to generate that and thinking about that for application processes is great. If you intend to go out west, those colleges are increasingly asking for portfolios to look at people's creative abilities, not just artistically, but in any kind of genre or subject matter that you're talking about.
Great. I think that's going to wrap it up for these first 3 subjects. So I'm going to ask Mr. Fletcher of the Religion Department to jump in.
Hello. Thanks for coming today. My name is Michael Fletcher. I am a religion teacher, rugby coach, and proud parent of a senior here at St. Peter's Prep. I'd like to share with you a little bit of a presentation here, or just some slides about our religion program at St. Peter's Prep. All students are required to take 4 years of religion. Our freshman intro course, Introduction to Religion, starts with an introduction to St. Ignatius, the Jesuits, and Ignatian spirituality, kind of dovetailing on campus ministry welcoming them to the school, about our mission and our heritage here. That lasts for about one marking period. The remaining 3/4 of the year is spent on the Old Testament Hebrew scriptures. Kids engage in biblical studies, engage in reading the stories, the myths, the legends in the Old Testament. We walk through it, usually Torah and then the writings, and then we leave them with the prophets at the end of freshman year. On sophomore year, we have an introduction to the New Testament. We talk about, we use a historical critical approach along with literary analysis and some contemporary studies of the New Testament. Students get an introduction to the historical world at the time of Jesus, and then later on, we'll walk through all four Gospels, Acts of the Apostles, and some of the Pauline letters at the end. So during the first part of the year, we're really looking into who Jesus is, why he's important, how he might have meaning for us today in our contemporary world. And during our Pauline, when we're reading the Pauline letters, we're really looking about the early church, what it meant to be church in response to Jesus. So Christology and ecclesiology on the sophomore year. The junior year is a Christian ethics course, moral decision making and social responsibility. We ground them in some ethical language and systems at the beginning of the course: deontology, virtue ethics, utilitarianism, and then we specifically pick up the issues of mass incarceration, race, and the death penalty. We read Just Mercy together. After that, we do a section on the environment, grounded by Laudato Si, the Pope's encyclical of a few years ago. And then at the end of the course, we ask the student to propose a little bit of a research project, a transformative proposal on a ethics, a moral situation that they are interested in themselves. On the senior level, we have what we call seminars. So they're year-long courses the students can select from. First one, Finding God in All Films, working through contemporary films with that Ignatian sort of God's in all things, and getting the kids to communicate with each other and things. Art and spirituality also, for a critical look into art and the religion lens, full year course also on world religions, and another full year course on global bioethics and human rights. The last two courses there with the asterisks are co-sponsored with the social science department, so kids can get a little credit on the college level. So that's our 4-year religion curriculum. All students need to do it. It's required for all 4 years. So at this point, I think I'm going to hand it off to Rosalie Romano, the head of the Modern Language Department.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rosalie Romano, the chairperson of the World Language Department, and I'm also the Italian teacher here at St. Peter's Prep. I'm going to be sharing my screen so that I can show you pretty much in greater detail our program of languages. Freshman year, as was mentioned by Mr. Keating, Latin is required for all freshmen. If your son has had prior experience of Latin at the middle school level, we do have placement tests that are administered, and he can be placed at more advanced level. There are 2 years of Latin required for Sheehan and Ignatian scholars, and then that sophomore year for the Sheehan and Ignatian scholars would be a simultaneous study with then a modern language, which I will explain in a few seconds. During your son's freshman year, for instance, next semester, I will be presenting the choices of modern languages to the freshman class, and they will be completing a survey where they need to answer questions. The most important questions being that they have a first and second choice of what their modern language would be when they start studying sophomore year. And they need to provide some more information in terms of if they've studied it at a middle school or if they speak it at home, and so on, so that we would be able to then contact your sons for a placement test. Students are also, they can also continue their Latin studies from sophomore through senior year, as you see here on the second part of the screen. We do have honors level courses throughout all 4 years, including AP Latin as well. This next screen, here are our languages, our modern languages that are offered that begin again sophomore year. Our choices are French, German, Italian, or Spanish. And just as I mentioned earlier, we do have and administer placement tests for those, for anyone who's had previous experience of the language, whether at the middle school or speaking at home. 2 consecutive years are required of the same language. Okay, so that brings then the student to junior year. And so at the junior year level, he would make the decision of whether to continue a 3rd year. We really, of course, as language teachers, really highly recommend that they do that. Most of the courses offered senior year are honors courses. So there's a 3 honors or an AP course as well. High achievers, as mentioned here, are encouraged to, we have students that actually have simultaneous studies of different languages. And that the most important one here is Mandarin. We have some students who are taking Mandarin, which is only offered as an elective, while still maintaining their course of studies throughout their selected modern language. Our focus of our curriculum in our modern languages is mainly skill-based. We do take the communicative approach, where we actually past 3 years or so have designed our curriculum around the IPA, what's called an integrated performance assessment. So main focus is on interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational skills. So that is the main focus of our curriculum here at St. Peter's Prep for languages. Lastly, just wanted to introduce to you some programs that, beyond the classroom, which is of course something that is super important in learning languages. We offer the students all are invited to take the national examination contest in all languages, whatever language they're studying, and we do super well. If you look on our website, I believe this month in October, we have posted the results of this past spring from 2020, and the results, like I said, we've had quite a few gold medal winners and so on. We also have had induction ceremonies. We have we give the opportunities usually junior year, because the requirement is 3 consecutive semesters of the language. So then students are selected with, of course, a GPA of a B plus and an A in the language, and they can become members of these honor societies listed here on the screen. We are also, each language teacher is also a moderator of the of our culture club. We have the Italian club, French club, German club, and Spanish club as well. And lastly, Mr. DeAngelo mentioned this at the start of the presentation today, that we have great relationships with our partner schools. And we do take pride in this, especially our department, because we do work hand in hand with our global initiatives. We do have if you go onto the St. Peter's Prep website, it's actually one of the main pages listed of our global initiatives. We have, what we do is we host students usually in the fall semester, and then there's travel in the second semester, spring or summer. Of course, everything's on hold, or trips this year have been canceled, as well as their visits here in this fall semester. But it's something that I think pretty much, I know in past open houses have made us, but it's different than any other school, and so and it's just been a great part of our students' language years here at St. Peter's Prep, because after these 2 weeks experience of traveling abroad, they move on to then studying abroad in college, and it's just great hearing back of their experiences. Here's our contact information. If you want to reach out to our Global Initiatives Director, Thomas Powers, you can find also our email address on St. Peter's Prep website. Thank you very much, and I'm going to stop sharing, and I will now introduce the science department, I believe is next. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ms. Catherine Epplier. I'm the assistant chair for the science department. I'm excited to be here with you all today, even if it is virtual. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about the freshman experience as a science student here at Prep, and then I'll give you a little bit of information about after freshman year. So the science department uses their own rubric to place students into their science classes for freshman year. And this is done using their scores on the HSPT and also the placement test. So with that information, students are placed into chemistry honors or physical science. The great thing about it is that students, and the way we set up our courses, students are able to choose a lot of their courses in the science department for their sophomore, junior, and senior year. So even though a student may take chemistry honors their freshman year, they can choose a non-honors or AP elective, and the opposite is true as well. So even if a student takes physical science their freshman year, they can then travel upwards to honors and AP classes. Speaking of honors and AP classes, we do have AP science courses. We have biology, chemistry, physics, and environmental science all at the AP level. We also have dual enrolled courses where students are able to receive college credit from some of our science classes as well. Those are anatomy and physiology, advanced biology 2, and advanced chemistry 2, and they all receive their credit from St. Peter's University. A lot of our work in the science department is skill-based, and it's working with students to develop science skills. So even though they may be in different classes, the skills that they're working on will be the same across the board. Under normal circumstances, we really do a lot of work in lab. We really appreciate and work in our beautiful lab spaces that are well equipped in order to have students do as much hands-on and inquiry learning as possible. Learning through doing is really the best way to do this. So again, we have a lot of electives in terms of what classes students can take. There are AP honors and regular classes, and also electives that are dual enrolled. So I know that was really fast, but at this point, I'm going to pass it off to our final presenter, who is from the math department.
Thank you. So my name is Casey Quinn, the assistant chair of the math department. And so when your son enters St. Peter's Prep, he will take an algebra course. So how that course is determined is that through our placement test in the spring that the 8th grader will take, in conjunction with looking at the HSPT scores, we will enroll your son in either an algebra course, an accelerated algebra course, or an honors algebra course, which really focuses on algebra 2 trigonometry. So we know that many 8th graders have seen some algebra before they enter prep. And so we do have those 3 different courses depending on the experience your son has had. So even if he has had a full Algebra 1 course, that honors course offers Algebra 2 and trigonometry. After that, his sophomore year will consist of a geometry course. In junior year, usually an Algebra 2 trigonometry or pre-calculus course. And then in senior year, we have an array of calculus courses that your son can take. Every once in a while, there is a student who enters prep who has a very strong math background, and we work with those students on an individual basis if they really have seen a full algebra and geometry course before St. Peter's Prep to work through our curriculum a little more quickly to have a chance for an independent study or an online course with our Jesuit associated schools in his senior year. Our goal in the math department is really to have every student take some form of calculus by his senior year. And we've been able to do that over the past couple of years. About 90% of our students end up in some calculus course in his senior year. Now, just because you place into one course in freshman year does not mean there's no room for improvement or moving up to the next level math course. Over the summer, there is a bridge course, an Algebra 2 trigonometry accelerated course that is offered for students for either just review, to strengthen their math skills, or maybe to move ahead in the math curriculum. So that opportunity is also there. We do have AP Calculus, both levels, AB and BC. New this year, our Calculus Honors course for seniors is also a dual enrolled program where they can get up to 8 credits at St. Peter's University. So that's a very exciting development that we have here in the math department this year. And we also offer electives in statistics. So we have an applied statistics and probability elective, as well as the AP statistics course. We've also been building a robust computer science program over the past few years. So after freshman year, your son will have the ability to enroll in different programming courses. There are programming courses with Python, with C++, with Java. There's a networking course, and there are a couple of robotics courses as well. So over the past few years, the math department has been working closely with the science and computer science departments to work collaboratively across different levels and to really give students who are focused, more interested in that engineering/math science background to really have an opportunity to go into those interests and succeed with them. And we're very proud to say we've had many recent graduates go on to study engineering, math, science at some top colleges. So we also have some clubs. We have a math club. We have a robotics club. Some of our students have had a hackathon over the past few years for their programming. So the math, science, engineering part of our school has really been picking up over the past few years. And so we're really excited to tout that. So at this point, I think we'll field any questions we have for the last 4 presenters: religion, languages, science, and math.
Right. I have a question for Ms. Romano specific to Mandarin, why Mandarin is not offered in freshman year, and maybe you could just even talk about why modern languages start in the sophomore year.
Yes, we have. It's been this way. This is part of our curriculum in terms of having Latin required for all students. But I want to say that for sure, I've been here 20 years, and our seniors, and I can tell mainly for those AP students when they reach senior year, because we have data that proves that their AP scores, despite 3 years of a language study only, we're very competitive with other high schools in New Jersey and in the country when we see the average percentage nationwide and statewide. There is really lots of parents and students say, oh, he's going to forget everything in that freshman year. That's not the case. It's like riding a bicycle, right? So it's that one gap of the 1 year. Once he takes that placement test, which is still given in that freshman year, so it's not a loss. And we've had great success in students being high achievers with just the 3 years of study.
Thanks, Ms. Romano. Now a question for Ms. Epplier. I know that our COVID protocols are a little bit different, but in general, what would you say about how often the boys are doing experiments and labs in science as opposed to lecture experience?
So thank you. That's a great question. We really love to do lab as often as possible. I think the least number is, once a cycle. There will be some sort of wet lab where students will be, working with different materials that we have in the lab and learning those skills, and also reinforcing different pieces of content. As Ms. Fitzpatrick mentioned, it is very different now. We are not doing wet labs. Everything is done virtually at this time, but the science teachers do really enjoy watching students learn through experiments. So we really do it as frequently as possible.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to go right back to Ms. Romano. We're going to save all the math questions for the end because we have a lot. So Ms. Romano, could you answer whether a student could, starting in sophomore year, take more than one modern language at a time? And could you also answer how many, what's the average for how many years of the modern language our boys will take? Do they take 2 or 3?
Okay, well, two years is required, and yes, we do encourage simultaneous studies, and we've had quite a few students do that. for sure. Sophomore year is, like I mentioned, the scholars are taking Latin 2. So that would be the simultaneous study with a modern language 1. I've had students myself that would kind of go through their 4 years at prep here with all 4 years of Latin and 3 years of Italian. And so we do encourage that. Actually, it's part of, we're trying to promote a program here about, which is part of the global initiatives of Open to Growth and having that student become a global citizen. And so we do encourage simultaneous study of a language, and it can be done even with 2 modern languages, not even if it's not Latin, it can be Italian and Spanish and so on.
Okay, a quick follow-up. I know we're kind of running on overtime, so we'll just do one follow-up with Ms. Romano and then go to math. What would you say are the benefits of taking Latin?
Well, the first slide that I had mentioned had listed the benefits, and that is just part of critical thinking, as well as learning for English vocabulary, I think even in being successful in the SATs as well, but also just being, again, that global citizen in terms of just knowing the experience of also the Latin roots within our foreign languages. As an Italian teacher, I know that my students make connections all the time and when they learn Italian with Latin. And so, of course, any Latin-based foreign language, I think any teacher would say the same. And I love that. I love when there's new Italian vocabulary that's being introduced, they quickly say, oh, it's just like Latin, right? So there is that that fact that they're making connections in the classroom, and so that also allows them to be critical thinkers as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to Mr. Quinn, and we'll wrap it up with a few math questions. There's a little bit of overlap. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at them. Maybe just a little bit more on the math placement, higher level math, questions about that. Also, do you participate in any fairs? That was for a science question as well. And I'll give you this last one. Can you understand the difference between accelerated algebra and honors algebra, specifically for students who may have completed 2 years of algebra in middle school? So take it away, Mr. Quinn.
Sure. Hopefully I hit all those in my responses. So again, the reason we have the placement test in the spring is to really see what the true amount of algebra is that students have studied. One of the great things about prep is that students come from all over in many different schools, but one of the other things is that we have to make sure what level of algebra was actually taught in their 7th or 8th grade year. So different schools will have different algebra curricula, and so what we have to look at with the placement test and with the HSPT is to see what that true level of algebra knowledge is. So in our 3 freshman courses, Algebra 1 is really for those students who haven't had much exposure to algebra before. The accelerated algebra is for students who have had an algebra background, maybe not as robust as some others, but they do have some of the general knowledge of things like solving equations and maybe a little bit of factoring. And then our honors algebra course in freshman year is really, again, an Algebra 2 trigonometry course. So that is really designed for students who have had a full background in algebra in their 7th and 8th grade years. And so, again, with that placement, there are opportunities. There is the bridge course over the summer where if your son really enjoys math and would like to maybe move ahead, maybe he's in algebra or accelerated algebra his freshman year, that bridge course does allow students to strengthen their math skills and move up maybe into a different level class in their sophomore or junior year. Again, for more higher level classes, again, our goal over the past 2 years has to get most of our students into a calculus course to expose them to at least some level of calculus. And again, we've been successful in that in the past few years. The levels of calculus are introductory calculus, calculus honors, which again now has that dual enrollment, so you can get college credit at St. Peter's University, and then the 2 AP calculus courses, which of course can count for college credit. And again, I saw a question before, different colleges count AP credits for different subject. So it will depend on the college and how they accept those AP credit. Just in terms of competitions, we have last year, we had a team of seniors compete in the Moody's Mega Math Challenge, where they come in on a weekend and they are given a math / science / engineering, all that fun stuff, a type of problem, and they sit there for a few hours and try to do a little research and write a paper answering the proposal. And in the previous year's topics have been about climate change, using efficiency in gas for automobiles. How can you maximize the efficiency use? So we do have students who compete in those competitions, and that's completely student driven. So if a student sees a competition that's math related and they come to somebody in the math department, we are happy to help them out and really spend some extra time with them to make sure that they have those opportunities.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. As was mentioned earlier, if you have more specific questions about academics, guidance, athletics, Browning Center, anything that you heard about today, just go to our website and reach out to those directors. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Irvine.
Okay, thank you again for joining us today. We hope that this virtual open house was helpful to you as you consider your many options for high school. This event will be posted on our website if you have friends or classmates who could not view it live. Our financial aid director, which might be very important for some of you, would like to invite you to an informational Zoom meeting on November the 10th at 6 p.m. Please email Mr. Fred Galano to request a link to that session. His contact information can be found on the financial aid page of our website. This concludes our event. Enjoy the rest of your day, and let's go prep.